field, everything that's built on something that's no longer true is getting, it's just kind of flying more and more and more out of coherence.
Right.
So that everybody gets the idea at once.
And it seems that there's, at some point there was some kind of rotten apple introduced into, and I'm not trying to make any references to Adam and Eve, but there was a rotten apple in the bunch, and it has pervaded literally the fabric of creation in a holographic manner, so that we have corruption at every level, from the top to the bottom and in between, and that certainly cannot sustain itself, as you said. It's like the snake eating its own tail. Sooner or later, you're going to end up with just a head.
Well, I think we've swallowed a lot of tails, and most of the tails that we've swallowed no longer apply. They're not true tails. I think that if we look at this entire process as an evolutionary learning process that's necessary. Like, for example, let's take the fall from the garden, if we call that. We could look at that as the change of moving away from this indigenous idea of everything is related and everything is connected. If we look at that indigenous belief that there's no separation and so on, it really paces the infant, where there is there's the connection to the mother. It's all very clear, but in order for us to get to the point where we are now, in order for growth to take place, there's a journey. You have to journey away from the safety of this protected state and learn other things. So we have ventured. We ventured out from the garden, and now it seems that we have to regrow the garden ourselves, that this is the conscious evolution, is recognizing consciously who we are, rather than simply being, other little animals and only human animals in a petting zoo. So everything that's happened in human history is part of our evolutionary experience, and all of it is necessary.
Well, it seems that it's kind of urgent now that people start to awaken to these truths, because we're literally running out of time. The hourglass has got maybe a grain or two of sand left in it. The oceans, I just found this out. I didn't even know this part. But they're just literally miles of islands of plastic floating around compacted in a mass in the oceans, and ships have to go make a long journey to get around it. You can't go through it. And then, of course, you've got the dead zones in the oceans, which are expanding at an accelerating rate. And we probably are going to run out of food and water pretty soon if the corporations have anything to say about it. So it could be a rude awakening.
Well, yeah, and again, nothing is guaranteed. Just as the butterfly, the caterpillar, it's inevitable that the caterpillar becomes the butterfly, but it's not inevitable that humans evolve. This is part of this is it's a conscious participatory process. And that's really what this is about, and we have to participate. It's not something that is some deity coming down from the sky and making things perfect for us.
Right.
That might have been, that's kind of a very infantile way of looking at our destiny, and that's not what our destiny is.
Right. There seems to be also a lot of circuitry that's going on that kind of hampers our ability to think, such as all the microwaves and, of course there's HAARP and various other things, interference patterns that are kind of keeping us at a certain level of participation, like television and cell phones and so on and so forth. It seems like it's creating more chaos.
Well, that may very well be true. If you imagine somebody from the 1600s showing up here and bringing their 400 or 500-year-old sensibility with them, the smells, the sounds, and the sights would probably be overwhelming. That the kind of threshold of energetic that we take for granted because we've been able to adjust to it, let's say.
Right. Kind of like the frog boiling in the water.
Yeah, the proverbial boiling frogs in the water. That's what it is.
Yeah. So, do you see then that you seem to hold a hopeful vision for our future? How can we begin to work with our own thoughts and beliefs in order to create that vision rather than to be subject to and victim of what we see around us?
That's a really good question. That's a very helpful question.
I don't know where it came from.
Oh, it came from the boson. No, it's a very helpful question. And really, I think that the clues that we have, first of all, evolution is not a theory, it's a practice. Evolution is practical. So if we want to practice we want to bring this evolution about, we want to practice it. So we need to shift our focus away from the old story in trying to fix the caterpillar, in trying to remedy the things that can't work anymore. And we have to begin to focus our work and our play attention on building this new butterfly organism. So what does that look like? Well, first of all, from the spiritual standpoint, it looks like having a connection with whatever one would call the all there is, and that power of love that reminds us that we are bigger than our situation. When you're overwhelmed by circumstances, and it's easy for that to happen right now, then it feels like whatever it is that's overwhelming us is bigger than we are. So when we get that spiritual perspective, when we get that internal connection, then we recognize that we are eternal beings. That, it's so interesting when you begin to delve into quantum physics. You're entering the twilight zone because it's not the physical Newtonian world that we imagine the world to be. And in that world, there is no time. Everything exists right now. Well, if everything exists right now, then what is the meaning of death? It doesn't exist. It means that if we're here now, we're always here. Wherever here is, wherever now is.
Right.
So these concepts, the physicist James Jeans, back in 1925, he said, we've had this Newtonian view, Descartes and Newton, talking about the universe as a machine. And he said, it's more accurate to say that the universe is a thought.
Oh.
So here, what could be more simultaneously tangible and intangible than a thought? It's not physical, you can't hold it in your hand, and yet the thought in many ways determines the reality. Here's an example. Let's take somebody who is anorexic. When this individual looks into the mirror, regardless of what they really look like, their perceptions tell them that they're fat. And it's like having a distorted mirror. Okay, so based on this perception, they physically limit what they eat until their system can't sustain any longer. So based on that perception, the physicality follows the perception.
Well, gee, then I'm going to start thinking that I'm skinny.
There you go.
Really fat.
Think that you're skinny, And, well, you know, that's right. The Swami has invented something to help with weight loss. It's called eating glasses. So it magnifies everything by 30%. So it makes it seem like there's a lot more food on your plate with these eating glasses.
Well, you know, that brings up the idea that humor changes our state to a higher degree, and you must see this constantly. The people, you know, in your audiences when you're doing shows and things like that, you know, that you make people laugh and you make them think at the same time and feel things that maybe they haven't felt and get outside of themselves for a moment. Isn't laughter a higher state?
Well, yeah, because first of all, one thing that happens is laughter can heal, not just physically, and I think the physical part is very, very important because it actually changes our body chemistry for the better. So it improves immune function, lowers the blood pressure, causes us to breathe, adds circulation. So physically, laughter is beneficial. And you know what? Even if you don't feel like laughing or you don't feel like smiling, if you smile, if you simply turn the corners of your mouth upward in a smile, we call that the levitational pull. Even if you just do that, your body thinks that you're happy, and your body begins to produce happy chemicals, strange as it may seem. So the physical act of laughter or smiling actually changes perceptions. So we don't laugh because we don't smile because we're happy. We're happy because we smile. Okay. Number two, the power of humor can create emotional release and emotional healing as well. You know, you never know how you can change somebody's mood just by a joke, and just by or even a playful gesture. Laughter dislodges mental structures that no longer work, that need to be deconstructed. That's one of the great things that humor does, is that it's a way for us to look at concepts, and we call it a weapon of mass deconstruction. It deconstructs old beliefs. And finally, humor gives us spiritual perspective. It gives us a God's eye view. It allows us to see from a higher view and reminds us that we are bigger than our situation. So, obviously, I recommend humor, and as a matter of fact, I've got a very, in addition to the Spontaneous Evolution book, available on my website, wakeuplaughing.com, there's also an ebook called Wake Up Laughing, An Insider's Guide to the Cosmic Comedy. And we have they're normally $15. We have a special going on. As of this afternoon, it'll be $10. So until May 2nd, which is World Laughter Day. So we want to actually enhance the laugh force and generate this laugh force for the next 2 weeks or so. And maybe we can create a force field big enough to heal the hole in the boson layer.
Well, you know, that sounds like a wonderful idea. And what you're suggesting then is that resistance is futile, and that all of these attempts that we see going on to resist the way things are and to change this and change that really aren't going to change anything. It's kind of a process that's evolving towards realizing that the change is within, and at least until the economy runs out, and then there won't be any change.
Well, you know, yes, everybody's calling out for change. Spare change, spare change, spare change. I think that not to misinterpret that. It's not like a call to be passive. It's a call to, rather than resisting and fighting against something that you don't want, simply asking the question, what would I like instead, and beginning to build that. Because that represents living into the new story. That represents building the butterfly. And if you think about how much resistance we spend arguing and fighting and complaining. You know, as somebody pointed out, Martin Luther King did not give a speech called I Have a Complaint.